So good morning everyone, my name is Lalit Soni and I welcome you all in this live session by Drishti IAS. As usual, we will be discussing Indian Express. Since it was a holiday yesterday, so we could not come live, so we will be discussing those news articles in today's discussion from yesterday's paper. Okay, and this is our 100th episode, so thank you for all the support you have given to us. So let's start. We'll start with the practice question which was given to you in the previous lecture. We will discuss that, and with that we will move forward with the important articles of the day, that is basically your mercenary spyware. You must have heard about this Pegasus. Okay, so like Pegasus, there is this another spyware which has been in news recently, and Apple has generated some you can say notification regarding that. Okay, so we will be talking about that. Then principal purpose test. So there was this agreement between India and Mauritius related to your double tax avoidance agreement. So basically there was some changes which has been made in that, so we'll be talking about that. Okay, under that particular change, one more element was added, that is principal purpose test. So we'll talk about that particular thing, what this principal purpose test is. Okay, why the God particle? Yesterday or day before yesterday when we had come live, then we have talked about this God particle or Higgs boson. Okay, so we'll be talking about that, why it is important for us. Okay, then a time standard for moon. Just like in India we have this just like our world, in this world or earth we have this particular standard time system which is followed internationally. Similarly, on that particular lines, we are thinking of going or having such kind of standard time for moon surface as well, because there are various probes which are going over there, and to make sure that they perform in a collaboration. So we will be talking about this particular thing, that is time standard for moon. Okay, around the world we'll see one or two news, and then we'll come to the for your own read. There is an article which is simple, and we have talked about ED. So there is this particular thing which is related to ED and attachment of the property. Okay, so we'll be talking about that, and then we will end the session with a practice MCQ. Okay, so this is today's front page. Here you can see there are some articles. These are political articles. Here is Shah Rukh Khan, and here you can see Ukraine, Swiss plan to meet in June. Russia presents sooner or later. So basically there is this peace process which is to be started in your basically Russia-Ukraine war. So basically we will be talking about that particular starting of that initiative which has been taken by Switzerland. So we will be talking about that and how India can be you can say stakeholder in that. Okay, so let's start. Which of the following is not mentioned as transmission route for hepatitis B and C infection in the article? Okay, I have asked you to remove this particular thing. Okay, so here you can see mother to child transmission. Second is unsafe blood transfusion, sharing of contaminated needles, and airborne transmissions. Okay, so here you can see airborne transmissions are basically the way which was not actually part of your hepatitis B and C transmissions. When we are talking about the maximum number of transmissions which are happening world over, that is related to your mother to child transmissions during the deliveries. Okay, so I hope this is clear. Now let's come to the first article of the day. Pegasus like spyware, Apple warns user in India. 91 and more countries are seeing such trends. Okay, so when we are talking about Pegasus is a spyware, okay, or you can say a malware which is generated to spy on certain activities like tapping, etc. So basically it was generated in Israel. Okay, and India also, there was this news that this particular software or you can say malware was used. Okay, but then Supreme Court has constituted a panel, and that panel gave a report. There was no evidence of such thing. Okay, so ultimately that was one thing. Here you can see if Apple has sent a fresh round of threat notification to some of its users in India along with 91 other countries. Okay, the warning is saying that there may have been a potential attack, or there can be a potential attack by Mercenary spyware. Okay, so this is the name of the spyware. Please remember this out of the whole article, only this name here is important. Okay, that there is this Mercenary spyware. Okay, like Pegasus, it is also a spyware. Now Apple has not attributed to the attack to any stakeholders. They have not told like to which you can say to whom this particular malware is targeting, or who has started or who has been using this particular malware. They have not provided any such information. They have just said that there is a threat of this particular thing. Okay, then the company has now termed these attack as mercenary spyware instead of the state sponsored. Okay, earlier there was this word which was used, that is state sponsored. Okay, when we are talking about this Pegasus, it was earlier, whenever there was this threat notification, it was used that it is a state sponsored malware. Okay, but now company has registered themselves from using such words. Okay, now company advises company advise users to be cautious with all the links they are receiving and not to open any link attachment from unexpected or unknown sender. Okay, change your password if there is any sensitive website or information which is there, so you can change the password. So these are certain you can say measures which has been talked about by the Apple company. Okay, other than that also this is very logical. If there is an unknown mail, there is an unknown link in your mails, etc., so please do not go and click on that, because there are high chances they can be viruses, they can be any kind of malware. Okay, then the Pegasus controversy came to light following media reports of alleged illegal use of the software to tap the phones of some activists, journalists and the politicians. This was happened earlier, and then there was this committee which was the Supreme Court has constituted to go for a probe into this particular matter, but there was nothing to be found. Okay, so there was no evidence of any kind of such tapping, etc., surveillance. Okay. Okay, now mercenary spyware is designed to remotely infiltrate and compromise the smartphone and other devices without the knowledge or consent of the user. Okay, because not user does not have any idea what is happening over there, because they don't identify. Whenever there is a link, there are high chances you might not be able to identify who has sent the link. Okay, so it is advised that if there is an unknown email, please don't respond to that. Then these surveillance tools could be used to monitor movements, intercept communications and steal private data. Okay, and then afterwards you can ask for any kind of extortion, etc., because of this particular data which they are in the possession of. Okay, so that is, you can say, a matter of cyber crime. Okay, so for our syllabus it will be related to cyber security matters. Okay, so please remember what is this mercenary spyware, please remember the name of Pegasus, the country it was originated, all these things you can remember from this article. Now we can move for the next article. India-Mauritius revised the treaty aimed to plug evasions. Okay, now there are two countries, they are going for a treaty related to tax. Now why two countries? Because when we are talking about taxes, these are imposed in their own jurisdiction. Like, okay, when we are talking about, let's say, India, so India have their own tax law. Okay, now why we are talking about two countries having a tax related agreement? Because there are certain people who can go from India to a country, let's say A, wherein they can earn over there. Now these are Indian citizens living over there and earning over there. So who this income which they are generating, who is basically you can say authorized to tax this particular income? Okay, now there are two countries which have jurisdiction over there, and that is why they come up with an agreement, they come up with a plan to tax this person. Okay, now if he has to pay to both of the countries, okay, let's say if a person who is working in Mauritius and he is from India, okay, now he has generated an income in Mauritius. Now Mauritius government will ask for the tax over there, that is income tax. Then Indian government will say, you are our citizens, so if you have generated an income, you can tax us. So that is another country asking for the tax. Okay, now that particular person will be incentivized, or you can say be at disadvantage, because he has to pay at two different places. There are high chances that there will be people who will say, or you can say generate such, you can say, tax receipts from such countries wherein their tax rates are very low. Okay, like country like Luxembourg, etc., they have very low tax rates and tax regime is very flexible over there, and because of which there are companies which are going over there and they are paying their tax there. Okay, so ultimately what they are doing is they are trying to evade the taxation at their own source company, or the place where they have actually gone for the manufacturing. Okay, so ultimately to avoid such circumstances, two countries go for a particular agreement. Okay, so that is such agreement which has been amended between India and Mauritius. Earlier there was this agreement and they have put some changes over there. Okay, we will go through all these things. Here is the word double taxation avoidance agreement. Okay, so we will see what is double taxation avoidance agreement. Second term which they have used in this article is related to your profit shifting and base erosion. Okay, so here we will be talking about the profit shifting and base erosion as well. Okay, here in this picture you can see there are a company which is actually based in this particular area somewhere in Europe. Okay, this company is based in Europe. It has a unit of manufacturing unit or something which, let's say, is somewhere in the South Asia. Okay, now here they are going for the manufacturing. The owner, the source company, or you can say parent company, is in Europe. Here they are having a manufacturing unit. Okay, they are going for the manufacturing. So basically that should be the part of this country's GDP. Okay, and technically this country should have a taxation right over this. Okay, but what happens is that after manufacturing the particular product, what they do is they send that particular product to another country, that is basically, you can say, where tax rates are very low. Okay, like countries like Costa Rica, etc. Okay, or the Caribbean countries somewhere. So here there are tax rates which are low. So basically what they do is they send the manufactured product over here for the final packaging. Okay, so now the thing is, the final product has been you can say ready over this particular point. Okay, so they say that since the final product is ready over here, so basically this particular country has the taxation right. Okay, now tax rates at this particular country is the nearly 2%, and when we are talking about South Asia, we can say that tax rates are nearly some 12 to 18%. Okay, so they are trying to evade the tax base over here, and they are shifting the profit to this particular country. Okay, because obviously on the profit, on your income, we will go for the taxation. Now this process is basically called profit shifting, where you have generated the profit. You are not basically going for that particular taxation over there, but you are shifting that profit to another country, and from there you are basically paying taxes. And now this country is having a tax regime which is very low. Okay, so ultimately that is how this particular process is called profit shifting. Now this country's tax base is eroding, that is why it is called base erosion. Okay, so ultimately profit shifting and base erosion is that terminology which is used when there are companies which are having multiple presence, or you can say their presence is at different stages, and they choose to pay tax at a country which is having a low tax rates. Okay, so that is basically your profit shifting and base erosion. Now coming to the double tax avoidance agreement. Okay, now as I told you, if a person who is working, he is from India and he is working in Mauritius. Okay, now if he is asked, okay, let's say there is this person A, and now he is asked to pay tax at two countries, then he will feel discouraged. He will not go for any kind of business as such, in some way where he has to pay tax at the two particular places. Okay, so ultimately it is having some kind of detrimental effect on the trade and the businesses, and that is why these two countries are going for a agreement which is basically a double tax avoidance agreement. Okay, now coming to this particular thing, what is it? Double taxation is imposed of two or more taxes on the same income. Okay, same income is there, one tax is imposed by India, one tax is imposed by Mauritius, that is why it is double taxation. Okay, two incomes, assets, or any financial transaction in different countries. Okay, now double taxation occurs mainly due to the overlapping tax laws and regulation of the countries where individual does the business. Okay, because now laws are overlapping, because on that particular transaction, on that particular income, there are two countries who are asking for your tax. Now for example, when Indian businessmen make a profit or some taxable gain in another country, he may be required to pay tax on that income in India as well as in other country as well. Okay, so that is basically your concept of double tax. And for the avoidance of double tax, we are going for the double tax avoidance agreement. Okay, so these two terms are basically clear, because these are basically terms of your economy statics, so that can be important. Now coming to the current scenario, what is happening in India and Mauritius businesses. Okay, so now in that particular amendment or the agreement which they have made some amendments, so here they have come up with the idea of principal purpose tax. Okay, now principal purpose tax is saying that, or it is denying any kind of tax benefit to a person if there is a transaction whose sole purpose was to get that particular benefit. Okay, now let's say double tax avoidance agreement, or there is this agreement wherein India and Mauritius agreed on particular term, and there is this particular benefit which is given to the person who is generating income over there. Okay, now that particular transaction has happened just because there is this benefit attached to it. in that case you will not get the transaction. Okay, so that is basically your principal purpose test. Okay, so here you can see the amendment pact has included what is called principal purpose test, which essentially lays out the condition that the tax benefits under the treaty will not be applicable if it is established that obtaining that duty benefit was the principal purpose of that particular transaction. Okay, obtaining benefit from that particular duty was the principal purpose. Okay, so for the purpose, or you can say for going for the lesser tax or for going for a particular benefit which was attached to that particular transaction, if you are doing that particular transaction, then you will not be availing this particular benefit. Okay, so that is the clause which has been added. Okay, Article 27B outlines the condition of granting treaty benefits, focusing on demonstrating a legitimate commercial purpose. Okay, the commercial purpose should be legitimate. That means that there should be a intent of doing business and not getting the profit or not getting the benefit. Okay, not profit but benefit out of that particular transaction. Okay, so there should be a legitimate commercial purpose here. When we are talking about Article 27B, this is not of our Indian constitution, it is of the treaty, or you can say the agreement. Okay, now the treaty's preamble now focuses on eliminating the double taxation without enabling the tax evasion or avoidance. So basically we are saying that we are not we are trying to avoid the double taxation, but we are also trying to avoid tax evasion or the avoidance. Okay, there is difference between evasion and avoidance. Avoidance means that you are trying to actually avoid paying the tax. Okay, evasion means that you are paying the tax, but there are certain ways you are imparting so that you have to pay less and less tax. Okay, now shifting away from the earlier object of the mutual trade and investment. When we are talking about this agreement, the earlier objective was to go for mutual trade and investment, but now the objective is to go for elimination of double taxation without enabling the tax evasion or avoidance. Okay, so that is about the agreement. Now there are certain more provisions which we can talk about here. The amendment may impact the existing and the future investments from the Mauritius and could lead to increase in the litigation. When we are talking about litigation, they are saying that there are high chances that the trade will be impacted, obviously because of the this particular changes which has been made, the change in the investment, or you can say there is a pattern of investment. As I told you, people are going for the benefit which are attached to it. Okay, since there is this particular agreement which gives you a benefit, and that is why people are investing more and more in Mauritius. Okay, so that is why this investment will be impacted by this particular agreement or the whatever provision they have added. So that is one thing. Second thing is there will be litigation. Now why there will be litigation? Because you have to prove that there was a legitimate commercial purpose and not only for the benefit you have gone for that particular transaction. So that liability will be on the businessman. Okay, so that one thing will be there, that there will be an increase in litigation. There are chances that people will be discouraged from going for certain transactions which are just for the benefit of the duty. There is ambiguity regarding the impact of the amendments on the investment made before March 31, 2017. So there was some investment which was made before this particular agreement. The agreement was signed in March. Agreement was signed in 2017. Okay. So ultimately now they have made some changes. Now they are saying that there are ambiguity related to the investment which was done before this particular date. Okay. So this clarity has not been given by the ministry yet, but we will be waiting for that, and that would not be important for you per se. But just the thing is, the change aligns with the global efforts against the treaty abuse under the base erosion and profit shifting framework, and anticipate potential development regarding the two pillars of the amendment in the Indian tax laws. Okay, so here just remember 2-3 things. One is related to your double tax avoidance agreement. What is this? Okay, first. Second is profit shifting and base erosion. Profit shifting and base erosion. These two concepts, please remember that. Third test was this particular purpose test or principal purpose test. Okay, so these three things please remember from your static point of view. Other than that, there is nothing in this article which is important. Okay. So next article, why the God particle theory theorized by the Peter Higgs. So this was the person behind this God particle, and he died recently, because of which this God particle was in news. He has got the Nobel Prize for this particular idea of God particle or Higgs boson. Okay, So when we are talking about this boson word is used for the all the elementary particles. Okay, so when we are talking about this electron, quarks, etc., these are all basically form of your bosons. Okay, but when we are talking about this particular kind of God particle or Higgs boson, it was discovered by the Peter Higgs, and that is why it is Higgs boson. Okay, now it was detected, the concept was theorized in 1960s somewhere, 1960s, but you can say that after nearly 50 years, in 2012, okay, there was this large hadron collider which has been made, and from that particular experiment they have come up with the discovery of Higgs boson. So for the first time in 2012 they have got this you can say experiment, and in which they have discovered the Higgs boson. Okay, now this particular, after 2012, in 2013 he was given the Nobel Prize. Okay, this person was kind of shy. Okay, so he has to, there was this interesting story attached to it. When he got to know that in 2012 they have discovered the Higgs boson based on his theory. Okay, so whenever the Nobel Prizes for 2013 was to be announced, he know that he might be there in the list. Okay, since he was a introvert person and he did not want to interact with so many people, to avoid all these things, he went rogue. He went out of his house and he was roaming around without telling anyone that where he is. Okay, ultimately some friend of his or neighbor of his found him, and then they told them that you have won the Nobel Prize. Okay, so that was some other part. Here let's start with the article. To detect the Higgs boson in 2012, they have come up with there was this particle or particle accelerator they have designed, that is the largest one. Okay, an elementary particle like electron, quarks, photons and neutrons, the Higgs boson is known to impart mass to every other particle. Now when we are talking about Higgs boson, what is the speciality about Higgs boson, why we are calling it a God's particle? Okay, so when we are talking about this particular thing, there was this particular book based on this theory which was released by another scientist. He was supposed to give the name of the book as goddamn particle. Okay, but then the publisher said that you can go for the God particle. Okay, and ultimately they got the name, that is the God particle. Okay, why? Because this significance of this particular you can say boson is so much that it is called God particle. Here you can see everything in the world, or you can say universe, is made of molecules ultimately. Okay, molecules are made of atoms, atoms are made of nuclei inside that, and in nuclei we have protons, neutrons, etc. And when we are talking about these protons, they are made of these quarks and gluons. Okay, and when we are talking about these quarks and gluons, they are basically having some weight. Okay, now we are saying that these are the elementary particles of the body, or you can say elementary particle of any body. Okay, so how come they will have a mass? They should be massless particle, and coming together then they should have you can say mass. Ultimately this person Peter Higgs, he has said that there is another particle, that is basically Higgs boson. Okay, and this is the particle which, with interaction with the other particles, imparts mass to that particular particle. Okay, so basically the job of this particle is to provide for mass. Okay, so every particle does not have its own mass, it is provided by it. Okay, and who provides it? That is Higgs boson. Okay, now there is this Higgs field. Okay, when we are talking about gravity, we have gravitational field. When we are talking about electromagnetism or electromagnetic force, we talked about electromagnetic field, means that there is an area of influence. Okay, so basically for Higgs particle or Higgs boson, there is this area of influence which is called basically your Higgs field. Now when these particles are in this Higgs field, they basically interact with each other, and they interact with the Higgs boson as well, and that interaction basically imparts the mass. Okay, so basically let's say if there are two particles, or you can say four particles, 1, 2, 3 and 4 particles, and they are in this particular field, that is Higgs field, and there is this Higgs boson, and ultimately because of the interaction between these 4 particles, okay, these 4 particles, there can be various ways of interaction. Okay, I will not go into PNC of that, but the thing is, these interactions are basically giving them mass. So if the number of particles are increased, these interactions will increase, and ultimately the mass will increase. Okay, so that is the idea behind Higgs boson. Okay, so I hope that is clear. Now coming to the article again. So who was Peter Higgs? As I told you, he was a molecular physicist, and he has discovered this particular Higgs boson. Okay, It was predicted in 1960s and it was found only in 2012 when there was this large hadron collider which has been developed by the France and Switzerland border, on the France and Switzerland border. Okay, it was the world's biggest and most expensive machine at that particular time. Okay, that is Large Hadron Collider, that is on the France and Switzerland border. So please remember that thing. Okay, now the discovery of the Higgs boson completed the standard model of particle physics. When we are talking about the standard model, there are various models which are trying to explain the particle physics, and one model is that is standard model, in which this discovery fits very well, and Higgs boson is actually giving you the answer to the queries which were there, like how mass is imparted to the particles. Okay, now describes all the elementary particles and the forces like electromagnetism, gravity, nuclear forces, and that are basically building up the materials in the world. Okay, there are still unexplained questions. Okay, there are still questions like what is dark energy, etc., how you will explain the dark energy, but again that are not part of your standard model, or you can say they are beyond that. Okay, but when we are talking about the standard model with the discovery of Higgs boson, we can say that that model is finally, you can say it is complete, because when we are talking about gravity, when we are talking about electromagnetism, when we are talking about the nuclear forces, these are all because of the particle interactions. Okay, and ultimately it was found that how the mass is imparted to the particle because of the Higgs boson. Okay, now why Higgs boson called God particle? As I told you, because there was this novel which was to be published. Initially that name of that particular novel was the God Man particle. Okay, ultimately publisher said that you can go for the God particle, and this novel was written by Leon Lederman. Okay, so that is one thing. Other than that, with Higgs, Peter Higgs, there was another person who also contributed to that particular discovery, and he was also he was also sharing the Nobel Prize with him. His name is Francis Engelert. Okay, so please, if you want, you can remember this name, but still please remember the name of Peter Higgs. Okay, now why does the Higgs boson matter? As I told you, how it is imparting the mass to the substances, and that is why it is basically important for us. Okay, you can go and give it a read, because ultimately we have seen this particular part in this picture, and I have told you how these interactions are happening and how this Higgs boson is important for us. Okay, now moving further, next article, which is related to like cheetahs in Andaman, how invasive species threatens the natural ecosystem. I have told you this thing in our previous discussion. Okay, so I will not go into much details, but there are certain species which has been discussed in this article. So we will be talking about that particular species. Okay, one thing is teaming the population of cheetal. Now the population of cheetal is basically, or you can say spotted deer, is basically increasing in Andaman and Nicobar, because earlier for the hunting games, etc., Britishers used to take this particular animal from Indian mainland to Andaman and Nicobar, and since there is no predator population to check the population of this cheetal, so they actually increase their population by reproduction, and ultimately there is this condition wherein their population is too much over there, and ultimately they are harming the ecosystem at Andaman and Nicobar. Okay, so that is why this is a cause of concern. When we are talking about invasive species, there are particular definitions which are given. Okay, so there is this CBD, Convention on the Biological Diversity, defines invasive alien species as species whose introduction and or spread outside their natural distributed theaters that will threaten the biological diversity. So what they are trying to do is that if there is a species, okay, which is introduced in, or in an area where it does not belong to, so it will start threatening that particular biodiversity of that particular area. Such species are invasive alien species. Okay, when we are talking about Indian Wildlife Protection Act 1972, it has another definition, but that definition is restricted to India. Here we are saying that the alien species are those which are from the outside India. Okay, we are not talking about the species which are within the regions. Like let's say if there is a species in the northern India and we are taking it to the Andaman and Nicobar, then for the biodiversity of Andaman and Nicobar, that species would be alien species. But the thing is, our Wildlife Protection Act does not talk about such things. There is a narrow definition, you can say, species of the animal or plant which is not native to India and whose introduction or spread may threaten or adversely impact the wildlife or its habitat. So that is what Indian law is saying. Okay, then what some example of this invasive alien species are there? So there are these some example related to a fish species. There is this African catfish, then Nile tilapia, and then we have this red-billed piranha. Okay, so this red-billed piranha, this is the species we are talking about. Then when we are talking about this turtle species, there is this red-eared slider. Okay, so this is a red-eared slider. So please remember the name of these 2-3 species and know that these are alien species, because they might ask you. Okay, and then we have this particular thing, that is cheetal. When we are talking about this species, they are from North America, this species of turtle. Okay, so here abundant in the local water bodies. When we are talking about this particular turtle, what happens is that this is very exotic, so people are buying it with you can say enthusiasm, and then after some time they are abandoning them to the local water bodies, and in the local water bodies their population is increasing, so that these are basically alien species for us. Okay, how do alien species impact the native species? As I told you, they will impact the food chain, they will thrive on the resources over there. So ultimately, since their population is increasing and they are increasing at the cost of the local species, so that is how they will put some kind of harm on the local species, and that is why that habitat as well as the species over there will be getting some kind of harm because of these alien species. Okay, so when we are talking about this particular species in Keoladev Park in Bharatpur, UNESCO World Heritage Site it is. So in Rajasthan there is this site, that is Keoladev. Okay, so there is this African catfish. We have talked about this African catfish over here. So this African catfish is found in that particular area, in the water bodies over there. These are basically thriving on the local species as well as the migratory birds which are coming over there. Okay, so they are preying on them. So ultimately the local population of these species or the migratory birds, etc., they are being hampered by this. Okay, then this cheetal in Andaman and Nicobar, they are posing threat to the local grasslands over there, because they are going for the grazing, and ultimately if there is high population, ultimately it will result into the you can say overgrazing of that particular area. Okay, now what is the economic impact? So when we are talking about the economic impact, there is this particular report, you can say Intergovernment Platform on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services. They have come up with a report which says that 37,000 established alien species are introduced worldwide. Okay, and when we are talking about each year, there are nearly 200 new species which are actually alien species which are entering in the local domains. The global economic cost of alien species, or you can say invasive alien species, over $423 billion annually in 2019. So that is the economic impact of alien species. Okay, then there is this particular thing, cotton mealy bugs are invasive species from the North America, has severely affected the cotton crops in Deccan, leading to the yield loss. So please remember this, that cotton mealy bug, cotton mealy bug, this is basically a species, alien species, which is threatening the paddy cultivations, cotton cultivations in the Deccan area. Okay, Deccan area means our peninsular area, ultimately you can say. So I hope this is clear. Please remember the name of these species over here. They have given some 4 or 5 names. This particular thing that is important for you. Then here you can remember this particular name, that is cotton mealy bug. Okay, cheetal you already know, we have discussed it second time now. Okay, now moving further. A time standard for moon surface, what is it and why it is needed? Okay, when we are talking about India, we have this coordinated time for India, the world as well, and now we are going for the coordinated lunar time. Okay, coordinated lunar time, coordinated lunar time. Okay, when we are talking about our Earth, we have coordinated universal time. Okay, or you can say we have UTC, universal time coordinated. Okay, now how it is decided? So ultimately what we do is we are trying to go for deciding time a parameter, so that everywhere in the world we are if we are talking in terms of time, we can calibrate it somehow and we can decide that this is the perfect time. When we are talking about I'm in USA and then I'm reaching India, so I can calibrate my watch, because there are certain aspects which are basically made by this international standards, so that we can calibrate time. Okay, now when we are talking about the lunar surface, similar problem is there, because first of all, our watches of the earth will not work over there, because the time, there is this, because of the gravity, times run in a different way in the on the moon. Okay, so that is why we have to have a watch, or you can say we have to have a standard through which we can collab on the space related maneuvers. Okay, so right now if we talk about, there are two, let's say there is this Chandrayaan, then there is this NASA's another satellite which is over there, and both of them are revolving around the lunar, in the lunar orbit, and there are chances that if they are not calibrated to time, there are chances that they might collide with each other. Okay, there are very rare chances, but yes, there are chances. So to remove those chances, we have to have a standard time, so that we can set those satellites with that particular time, so that that particular problem can be avoided. Okay, so at the same time, these two satellites will not be at the same place, and so that we can avoid the collision. Okay, so that is basically idea about having a lunar standard time. Okay, so let's talk about it. While the White House has directed NASA to create a time standard for moon to coordinate activities on the lunar surface. Okay, and it is given that deadline was given to come up with the strategy by 2026, that will be called as coordinated lunar time, LTC. Okay, now first we will see how it is working on India. So when we are talking about the coordinated universal time, this has been decided by the International Bureau of Weights and Measure. As I told you, there is this body. Okay, and this body is established, or you can say this body is based in Paris. Okay, UTC is essentially an internationally agreed standard for the world time. So we are talking about our Earth. So for the world time, this is an international standard. Okay, now UTC is tracked by weightage average of the more than 400 atomic clocks. When we are talking about these atomic clocks, these are basically based on the vibration of that particular atom. Okay, when we are talking about these, our different clocks which we are using, these are normal clocks. These won't work when we are talking about, or these won't be as efficient. Okay, because they cannot go for the difference of the milliseconds. Okay, but when we are talking about the world time, so these milliseconds will have some weightage over there. So ultimately, when we are talking about this vibration, these particular atoms vibrate at a very faster pace. In a millisecond, they vibrate for like thousands of times. So that is why they are taking that atomic clock as a base, so that they can even track that particular small amount of vibrations. Okay, now the weighted average of the more than 400 atomic clocks placed around globe. Atomic clocks measure time in terms of resonant frequencies. Okay, so we are using this cesium 133. Cesium 133. Okay, in atomic time, a second is defined as the period in which a cesium atom vibrates 9 lakh, sorry, you can go through and read this number, that is 919263177770 times. Okay, so basically this is the number. In a second it can go for such number of vibrations. Okay, so if you are going for a watch which can track such vibrations, so ultimately we can be as precise as possible. Okay, so that is why they are using this cesium 133, or you can say these atomic clocks, and these atomic clocks are placed around the globe or at nearly 400 places, and then we calibrate these clocks with each other, and then we come up with a standard time. Okay, now when we are talking about to obtain the local time, what we have to do is that we make we may come up with a standard time, and then there is this Greenwich meridian, and according to that Greenwich meridian we will decide the local time. Okay, so Greenwich meridian is basically your 0-degree meridian. Okay, and if you are moving east of it, you have to add the time. If you are moving west of it, you have to subtract the time based on the degrees of the meridian. Okay, so in this particular picture you can see this is your Greenwich meridian. Okay, so for every 15 degree there will be a 1 hour. Okay, or you can say that for every 1 degree there will be 4 minutes. Okay, so if you are moving towards east, so you will add 1 minute, for every 1 degree you will add 4 minutes. Okay, and if you are moving towards the west, you will subtract it. Okay, so this is very simple. There is this Greenwich meridian. Okay, for every 15 degrees you will have to add 1 hour to the side. Here it is given -1 hour, that is basically this area is losing -1 hour, so you don't have to get confused if you want to get the time. Okay, so technically you can say that we are moving ahead of USA. Okay, so eastern countries are basically moving ahead of western countries. So that is clear. So in the east direction, if you are moving, you have to add, and if this direction you are moving, you have to subtract. Okay, so here you can see it is written in the, I guess. Okay, so if a country is to the west of the Greenwich meridian, it has to subtract from the UTC. Okay, UTC is basically the standard time at the Greenwich meridian. And then if a country is to the east of the meridian, then you have to add. Okay, so as simple as that. This is your Greenwich meridian, and if you are moving around this particular side, you have to add. If you are moving in this side, you have to subtract. Okay, and how you will do that depends on the degree of deviation, or from the Greenwich, how distant you are. Let's say if you are distant at a distance of 15 degree, okay, so you have to add 1 hour, and if you are at a distance of 30 degree, you have to add 2 hours. Okay, so that is the idea. Then we have this international date line. You must have heard about this particular date line in your geography statics. Okay, I will not go into details of it, but please note that when we are talking about this Greenwich meridian, it is straight and it is passing through this Royal Observatory. Okay, and when we are talking about this particular international date line, here you can see this date line is twisted in some ways. Okay, and that is because to impart, or you can say to take into consider the time of these particular areas into the one particular segment. Okay, so please go through this international date line concept and the Greenwich meridian concept. Now, why do we need a time standard for moon? As I told you, we will have different satellites. As of now, we are having, we are talking about some satellites, but in future, every country is basically aspiring to go in space. China is preparing for space missions. China is preparing for the moon mission specifically. India is preparing for it. USA is preparing for it. Japan is preparing for it. So ultimately, these countries are going for the moon missions, and ultimately there will be various satellites will be present in the lunar orbit, and that is why this standard time is important. Other than that, if we are talking about the data collaborations, data sharing, etc., for that also these standard time will be very helpful. Okay, then how will the lunar standard time be calculated, or how it will be established? So we don't have such idea about it. There is no, they will come up with the strategy by 2026, but there are speculations that you can go for the similar method. On the earth we are going for the atomic clocks, we can do the same on the lunar surface as well. We can go and put atomic clock as different locations, and accordingly we can come up with the time. Okay, so that is about your standard time for moon. Now moving further, your article related to your around the world. There is this Ukraine Swiss plan for meet, and Russia presents sooner or later. So basically what is happening is Switzerland has come up with this particular peace plan, or they are coming up with a meeting wherein they are trying to solve this issue of Ukraine and Russia, because it has been more than 2 years now, and that is why it is important to come up with a solution for that. Even when you can say Ukrainian president has talked with our prime minister, they have said that India should be part of that. They have tried to convince India, and then external affairs minister of Ukraine, they have come and visited, and they have also put forward similar proposals. Switzerland also wants that India should be present over there, because India has a sway on Russia, because we have a good partnership with Russia. Okay, so right now when we are talking about Russia is saying that we will not be part of any kind of deal until unless there is this all the issues which are there, like related to your goals, Russia's goals, which are met in that particular area of Ukraine. Till then they will not go for any kind of peace process. They have not specified what are the goals, but that is the one thing. But again, Switzerland has said that ultimately Russia has to be on board. If you are going for any kind of peace plan between Russia and Ukraine, then Russia has to be on board, and eventually I hope Russia will succumb to the international pressure and they will come to on the table. Okay, so there are expectations that Italy will invite PM for G7 leaders summit as a guest. Okay, so they have come up with a date that is basically your I guess 13th to 15th of June. Okay, so they are going for a summit. G7 leaders are going for a summit in 13th to 15th June. Okay, in Italy. And on the same time, they are considering that since all the leaders will be there in the Europe, so they are considering time that is 15th and 16th June for the this particular peace process. Okay, so this peace process will be happening at lake, there is this hotel above the lake Lucerne in Switzerland. Okay, so we'll talk about this lake later, but the thing is they are trying to meet on the sidelines of the G7 summit. Okay, this G7 summit will be there in 13th to 15th of June, and then 15th to 16th June there can be this particular meeting. Okay, Now, since India is not a member of G7, so obviously since last 5 years, these G7 members are being inviting India over there as an observer. So there are high chances that they will invite India this year also, and then India can take part in the process. Okay. Then India has to take a decision. There is this 10-point program or 10-point agenda, which has been 10-point peace formula, you can say, which has been basically provided by the Zelensky, or you can say the president of Ukraine. Okay, in that particular formula, it has said that withdrawal from the Russian troops from the Ukraine, release of prisoners, restoration of Ukraine's territorial integrity, guarantee on the nuclear safety, food, energy, and security sector. So these are certain points which has been put forward by the Ukraine. But Russia is saying that ultimately, since till their own goals are basically fulfilled, they will not go for any kind of peace. Okay. So that is simple, I guess. There is nothing more to discuss. Please remember the name of the lake here. Okay. So when we are talking about Switzerland, it is in Europe somewhere here. This is the place. Okay. Then when we are talking about this Lake Lucerne, that is in Switzerland. Please remember that UPSC has this tendency to ask questions related to lakes. So there is this Lake Lucerne, and then there is this Zuger Sea over here. Okay. So please remember these two things. Now, for your own read, we have this article that is related to adjudicating authority under PMLA, Prevention of Money Laundering Act. Okay. So there was this particular thing that is related to attachment of property. What is attachment of property? In simple words, you can say that if there is a property which has been buyed from the corruption's money, or you can say a money which has been earned from the illegitimate sources. So if you are buying a property from such particular money, and the ED, Enforcement Directorate, get to know about this particular thing, and the director of ED has this feeling, or you can say has how can I tell that he somehow comes to know that this particular property is basically bought from the money of illegal source, or you can say from the corruption's money, then they can go for the attachment of the property, or you can say that they can go and give a notice that this property has been attached to that particular trail of the money. And now this ED has to get a confirmation from the authority within 180 days. Okay. So there is this adjudicating authority which they are talking about, that is there is this authority under the PMLA. They have to basically give this confirmation within 180 days. Till that particular time, that person can enjoy the benefits of the property in whose possession that property is. Okay. But then once this property is confirmed by this adjudicating authority, then he has to leave that particular property till the time that particular trial is running. Okay. So that term, that is attachment of the property, it is done by ED. Okay. And then there will be confirmation from the adjudicating authority, and this is under the Prevention of Money Laundering Act. When we are talking about attachment, it means that if there is a property which is earned, or you can say bought from the money of the corruption, or you can say any kind of illegitimate sources, then such property can be attached by the enforcement director, and then there is the authority which has to confirm. Then there will be a trial. If that trial concludes with a judgment that property was indeed bought with a illegal source of money, then this property's ownership will be transferred to the government, and if not, then ownership will be given to the individual bank. Okay. So I hope this is clear. Now last part of the, you can say, our discussion, that is prelims questions, or you can say a practice question for you. Which country is home to the Greenwich Meridian? Okay. US, India, United Kingdom, Fiji. So when we are talking about Greenwich Meridian, that is basically a 0-degree meridian, which we have already discussed. Now you have to tell from which particular country this meridian is passing. Okay. So I hope this is very easy question, so you can answer in the comment box. With that, I would like to take your leave. I hope I'll see you soon after weekend. So have a nice weekend. Thank you.